Jake Morrison stood at the observation deck of the massive alien ship, watching stars streak past in ways that still made his brain hurt. 6 months ago, he had been a Marine Corps commander dealing with desert combat and urban warfare. Now he was floating through space on a vessel the size of a small city, surrounded by beings that looked like they stepped out of science fiction movies. The ship was called Starward Dawn, and it belonged to something called the Galactic Defense Coalition. Earth had joined this group just 2 years ago, after first contact with alien civilizations. The whole thing still felt like a dream to Jake. One day he was planning training exercises in Nevada, and the next day he was being asked to represent human military tactics to a bunch of aliens who had been fighting wars for thousands of years. Jake looked down at his tablet, reviewing the mission briefing for the 100th time. The Coalition wanted to see what humans could bring to their military operations. They had heard stories about human soldiers and their ability to adapt and improvise, but they wanted to see it for themselves. This training exercise was supposed to be a simple demonstration of defensive tactics. "Commander Morrison, they are ready for you in the briefing room," said a voice behind him. Jake turned to see Lieutenant Amy Stevens approaching. She was a combat engineer, one of the smartest people Jake had ever worked with. She could look at any piece of equipment and figure out how to make it work better, or how to use it for something completely different than what it was designed for. "How are you feeling about all this, Amy?" Jake asked as they walked through the ship's corridors. The walls were made of some kind of smooth metal that seemed to glow slightly. Everything was much bigger than human-sized, built for beings that were taller and wider than people. "Honestly, sir, I'm excited," Amy replied. "I've been studying their technology for weeks. It's incredible what they can do, but I keep noticing things that could be improved. Different approaches that might work better in certain situations." They entered a large room where several aliens were waiting. Jake had met them before, but he still felt a little nervous around them. General Lexkar was a Korthek, which meant he looked like a 7-foot-tall lizard covered in natural armor. His people were known as the best heavy assault troops in the Coalition. When he spoke, his voice sounded like gravel being crushed. "Human Commander Morrison," General Lexkar said, nodding his massive head. "We are prepared to begin the exercise demonstration." Next to him stood Strategic Mind Zillaneth, a Viridian. The Viridians looked like giant insects, but they were incredibly intelligent. They could think as a group, sharing thoughts and strategies instantly. Zillaneth's compound eyes reflected light in strange patterns, and when she spoke, it sounded like several voices talking at once. "We have prepared scenarios that will test standard defensive protocols," Zillaneth said. "Your species will observe our methods, then demonstrate your own capabilities." The third alien in the room was Commander Veltar, a Zephyrian. His people were tall and thin, with pale blue skin and large eyes. They had developed the most advanced energy weapons in the Coalition. Veltar moved with a grace that made Jake think of dancers, but he knew the alien could probably kill him in a dozen different ways without breaking a sweat. "Where is your third human?" Veltar asked, his voice soft and musical. "Right here, sir," came a voice from the doorway. Sergeant Danny Walsh entered the room, carrying a large bag of equipment. Danny was an explosives specialist, and he had a reputation for being able to blow up anything that needed blowing up, usually with whatever materials happened to be available. "Sorry I'm late," Danny said, setting down his bag. "I was checking out their armory. Some really interesting stuff down there." Jake noticed the way the aliens looked at each other when Danny mentioned the armory. They probably weren't used to guests wandering around their weapons storage areas. But Danny had always been curious about how things worked, especially things that exploded. "Very well," General Lexkar said. "We will proceed to the training facility. The exercise will take place on the surface of Kepler 442b, a mining colony that has been evacuated for this purpose." The group moved to the ship's transport bay, where several smaller ships were waiting. Jake had learned that these were called dropships, and they were used to move troops from the big ships down to planet surfaces. The ride down to the planet was smooth, much smoother than any helicopter or airplane Jake had ever been in. The planet's surface looked like a desert, but with strange rock formations that twisted up into the sky like frozen tornadoes. The mining colony was built into one of these rock formations, with buildings and equipment scattered across several levels. It looked like it had been carved directly out of the stone. The facility contains all standard defensive equipment. Strategic Mine Zillineth explained as they walked through the empty corridors. Energy barriers, automated weapon systems, communication networks, and sensor arrays. The exercise will simulate an invasion by hostile forces. Jake looked around at the setup. Everything was clean and organized, with equipment placed in logical positions. The aliens had clearly spent a lot of time planning out the most efficient defensive arrangements. It was impressive, but it also seemed a little too perfect. "How many people normally work here?" Amy asked, running her hand along one of the walls. "Approximately 200 beings," Commander Veltar replied. "Mostly mining technicians and equipment operators." Danny was examining some of the weapons emplacements. "These are nice," he said, "but they're all fixed in place. What happens if the enemy comes from a direction you didn't expect?" "The defensive positions cover all possible approach routes," General Vexkar said. "Our tactical computers have calculated the optimal placement for maximum effectiveness. But what if the enemy doesn't follow the optimal attack patterns?" Jake asked. The three aliens looked at each other again. Jake was starting to recognize that look. It was the same expression he had seen on the faces of officers who had spent too much time following rulebooks and not enough time dealing with real combat situations. "The exercise scenarios are based on thousands of years of combat data," Zillineth said. "All possible enemy tactics have been considered and planned for." Jake nodded, but he wasn't convinced. In his experience, enemies rarely did what you expected them to do. The best plans usually fell apart as soon as the shooting started, and the winners were the ones who could adapt the fastest. They spent the next hour walking through the facility while the aliens explained their defensive strategies. The Korthek preferred heavy weapons and strong defensive positions. The Viridians used coordinated group tactics and advanced sensors. The Zephyrians relied on energy shields and precise targeting systems. All of their methods were sophisticated and well tested. Jake could see why the coalition had been successful in their wars, but he also noticed something that bothered him. Every defensive plan assumed that the enemy would attack in predictable ways. There didn't seem to be much room for improvisation or adaptation. "When do we start the actual exercise?" Danny asked. "Tomorrow," General Vexkar replied. "First you will observe our methods, then you will demonstrate human defensive capabilities." "What equipment will we have access to?" Amy asked. "Standard coalition defensive systems," Commander Veltar said. "Plus any human equipment you have brought?" Jake looked at his team. They had brought some basic gear, but nothing compared to the advanced alien technology surrounding them. If they were going to impress these aliens, they would need to be creative. "Sounds good," Jake said. "We're ready to learn." As they walked back to the dropships, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that this exercise was going to be more interesting than any of them expected. The aliens were clearly skilled fighters, but they seemed to think about combat in very structured ways. Humans, on the other hand, were famous for thinking outside the box. Tomorrow was going to be an interesting day. The next morning came too quickly for Jake Morrison. He had spent most of the night studying the facility's layout and trying to understand how the alien defensive systems worked. The technology was impressive, but it all seemed designed for specific situations. What would happen if those situations changed? Jake met Amy and Danny at the facility's main command center. The room was filled with screens showing different views of the mining colony. Red dots marked the positions of automated defense systems, while blue lines showed the coverage areas of various sensors and weapons. "Good morning, Commander Morrison," General Vexkar said as Jake entered. The massive Korthek was standing in front of the largest screen, studying attack patterns. "Are you prepared to observe our defensive demonstrations?" "Ready as we'll ever be," Jake replied. He noticed that Amy was already examining some of the control panels, her fingers tracing the alien symbols that covered the buttons and displays. Strategic mind. Zillaneth moved to the center of the room, her compound eyes reflecting the light from the screens. We will begin with a basic invasion scenario. 50 automated combat drones will attack the facility from the eastern approach. This represents a standard rating force. Danny whistled softly. 50 drones? That's a lot of targets. For coalition forces, this is considered a minor threat, Commander Veltar said. Our defensive systems can handle much larger attacks. Jake watched as the aliens activated their combat systems. The screens showed dozens of weapons coming online, energy barriers forming around critical areas and sensor networks scanning the surrounding terrain. Everything moved smoothly, like a well-rehearsed dance. Attack wave incoming, announced the facility's computer system. On the screens, Jake could see small flying objects approaching from the east. The drones looked like metal birds moving. In perfect formation, the Korthic defensive system activated first. Heavy weapons mounted on the facility's walls began firing, sending bright energy beams toward the approaching drones. The shots were accurate and powerful, destroying several drones with each hit. Impressive firepower, Amy said, but Jake noticed she was frowning slightly as she watched. The drones responded by splitting into smaller groups, trying to approach from different angles. This was when the Viridian systems took over. Coordinated. Sensor arrays tracked each drone individually, while automated weapon systems calculated the best targeting solutions. Our tactical computer processes 10,000 calculations per second, Zillaneth explained. It predicts enemy movements and adjusts our defensive fire accordingly. More drones fell from the sky, but a few managed to get close to the facility. This was when the Zephyrian energy shields activated. Glowing barriers appeared around the most important buildings, deflecting the drones' attacks. The shields can absorb tremendous amounts of energy, Veltar said. They are nearly impenetrable. The entire attack lasted less than 10 minutes. All 50 drones were destroyed, and the facility suffered no damage. The aliens looked pleased with their demonstration. Excellent coordination, General Excar rumbled. Each species contributed their strengths to achieve total victory, Jake nodded appreciatively. That was very impressive. Your systems work perfectly together. Thank you, Zillaneth said. Now we will demonstrate defense against a larger force. 200 drones, attacking from multiple directions. The second wave was more challenging. The drones came from all sides, forcing the defensive systems to split their attention. But the result was the same. The aliens' weapons were powerful, their sensors were accurate, and their shields were strong. The drones were destroyed efficiently and systematically. Your turn, General Excar said to Jake. Show us human defensive capabilities. Jake looked at his team. They had watched the aliens destroy 250 combat drones without breaking a sweat. Now they were expected to do something equally impressive with much simpler equipment. What are we working with? Danny asked, examining the available weapon systems. Standard coalition defensive equipment, Veltar replied, plus whatever human modifications you choose to implement. Amy was already moving around the room, studying the control systems and power distribution networks. Jake, can I have a few minutes to look at how everything is connected? Take your time, Jake said. He walked over to one of the screens showing the facility's layout. The alien defensive positions were logical and well-placed, but they were also predictable. Every weapon had a specific field of fire, every sensor covered a particular area, and every shield protected a designated zone. The next wave will consist of 100 drones, Zillaneth announced. They will attack from the western approach. Jake studied the attack route on the screen. The drones would come through a valley between two rock formations, then spread out to attack the facility from multiple angles. It was exactly the kind of scenario the alien defenses were designed to handle. Amy, what do you think? Jake asked. Amy looked up from a control panel she had been examining. Their systems are incredibly advanced, but they're all designed to work in specific ways. The power distribution follows predetermined patterns. The weapons fire in calculated sequences and the sensors scan in regular sweeps. Meaning what? Danny asked. Meaning they're predictable, Amy said. If I were attacking this place, I would study their patterns and find ways to exploit them. Jake felt something click in his mind. The drones are programmed to attack in standard patterns too, right? Correct, General Dexkar said. They use proven tactical approaches based on real combat data. So both the attackers and defenders are following predictable patterns, Jake said. What would happen if someone changed the rules? The aliens looked at each other with that expression Jake was starting to recognize. It was the look of people who had never considered that the rules might be wrong. The rules are based on thousands of years of successful combat, Zillaneth said. They've been tested and proven effective. But what if your enemy doesn't follow the same rules? Amy asked. What if they do something unexpected, such as? Commander Veltar asked. Jake walked over to the facility's main power distribution panel. Amy, if we rerouted power from the eastern defenses to the western ones, could we double the firepower on the attack route? Amy's eyes lit up. We could do that, but it would leave the eastern side completely undefended. But the attack is coming? From the west, Danny said. Why would we need eastern defenses? Because the tactical computer has calculated the optimal defensive configuration, Zillaneth said. Changing it would create vulnerabilities, or it would create opportunities, Jake said. What if we made the western defenses so strong that nothing could get through them? General Dexkar's armored head tilted slightly. That would be ... unconventional. Let's try it, Jake said. Amy, can you reroute the power? Amy was already working on the control panel. Give me 5 minutes. I need to figure out how their systems connect to each other. While Amy worked, Jake studied the drone attack patterns on the screen. The automated enemies always approached in logical formations, using terrain for cover and spreading out to minimize damage from area weapons. They were efficient and predictable. What if we made them come to us instead of meeting them halfway? Jake asked Danny. You mean like a trap? Danny replied, his face lighting up with interest. Exactly. What if we let them think they're winning, then hit them when they're not expecting it? Danny started examining the mining equipment scattered around the facility. There's a lot of stuff here that could be repurposed. Cutting tools, hauling equipment, even some of the mining charges. Mining charges? Veltar asked. Explosives, Danny explained. For breaking up rock formations? But they could be used for other things too. I'm done with the power rerouting, Amy announced. The western defenses now have 300% normal power output. Jake looked at the screens showing the new power distribution. The western side of the facility was now bristling with energy, while the eastern side was dark and apparently defenseless. This configuration is highly inefficient, Zillaneth said. You have created a massive vulnerability. Or a massive surprise, Jake replied. Computer, initiate attack sequence. The screens showed 100 drones approaching from the west, moving in their standard attack formation. They flew through the valley exactly as predicted, then spread out to attack the facility. The western defenses opened fire with tremendous force. Energy beams 3 times more powerful than normal reached out to destroy the approaching drones. The entire first wave was eliminated before it could even reach the facility's outer perimeter. Impressive, General Dexkar said, but highly inefficient. You used far more power than necessary. But it worked, Amy said, and it worked faster than the standard defensive pattern. The next wave will be more challenging, Zillaneth warned. 150 drones from multiple directions? Jake smiled. That's exactly what we're hoping for. As the aliens prepared the next attack sequence, Jake gathered his team together. They had proven that human thinking could be effective, but now they needed to prove that it could be better than alien methods. You two ready for some real improvisation? Jake asked. Amy and Danny grinned. Always, they said together. The next wave of drones appeared on the screens, and Jake realized that the real test was just beginning. The next attack came faster than anyone expected. 150 drones approached the facility from 3 different directions, their metal bodies gleaming in the alien sun. Jake watched the screens as the automated enemies split into coordinated groups, each one following a different attack pattern. "This is beyond standard parameters," Strategic Mind Zillineth said, her compound eyes reflecting the warning lights that had started flashing around the command center. "The exercise computer has increased the difficulty level." General Vexkar's armored claws clicked against the control panel. "Perhaps we should return to standard defensive configurations. Your power modifications have left critical areas undefended." Jake looked at Amy, who was studying the approaching drone formations with intense concentration. "What do you think? Can we handle this?" "Not with conventional tactics," Amy replied. "But I have an idea." "Danny, remember those mining charges you were looking at?" Danny's face broke into a wide grin. "You want to blow something up?" "I want to blow up the right things at the right time," Amy said. "Jake, what if we don't try to stop all the drones? What if we let some of them get close, then use that against them?" Jake felt that familiar sensation he got when a crazy plan started to make sense. "What are you thinking?" Amy pointed to the facility's layout on the main screen. "Look at the terrain. The drones have to funnel through specific areas to reach the important buildings. What if we turn those choke points into traps?" "The mining equipment," Danny said, understanding immediately. "We could use the hauling cables to create barriers and the cutting tools to create new defensive positions." Commander Veltar's large eyes widened. "You wish to modify the facility during active combat?" "Why not?" Jake said. "The enemy is adapting their tactics. Shouldn't we adapt ours?" "It is not procedure," General Vexkar rumbled. "Defensive positions are established before combat begins, not during the engagement." "But what if changing during combat gives us an advantage?" Amy asked. She was already moving toward the facility's engineering controls. "I can reroute the mining equipment to create mobile barriers. Danny can place charges to funnel the drones into specific areas." Jake made a decision that would have gotten him in serious trouble back on Earth. "Do it, Commander Morrison," Zillineth said. "This is highly irregular. The exercise parameters do not allow for facility modification during combat." "Then maybe the exercise parameters are wrong," Jake replied. "Amy, how long do you need?" "Give me 10 minutes, Amy said, her fingers flying over the alien control systems. "I need to figure out how to interface our equipment with their systems." The drones were getting closer. Jake could see them on the screens, moving in perfect formation toward the facility. They would reach the outer perimeter in less than 15 minutes. "I cannot authorize this deviation from protocol," General Vexkar said. "Then don't authorize it," Jake replied. "I'm taking full responsibility." Danny was already running toward the equipment storage area, his bag of tools bouncing against his hip. "I'm going to need some of those mining charges," he called back. "Danny." "Wait," Amy shouted. "I'm sending the facility schematics to your tablet. Look for the structural weak points. We can use controlled explosions to create new defensive positions." Jake watched Amy work with the alien systems. She had always been good with technology, but this was something else. She was making connections between human and alien equipment that shouldn't have been possible. "How are you doing that?" Commander Veltar asked, moving closer to watch Amy's work. "Your power systems are more flexible than you realize," Amy explained, without looking up from the controls. "You've been using them in standard configurations, but they can be rerouted in real time. Watch this." She pressed a series of buttons, and suddenly the mining equipment throughout the facility began to move. Massive hauling cables snaked across the ground, creating barriers between buildings. Cutting tools mounted on mobile platforms repositioned themselves to create new defensive angles. "This is impossible," Zillineth said. "Those systems are not designed for military applications." "They are now," Amy replied with a smile. Jake's communication device crackled to life. It was Danny, calling from somewhere in the facility. "Jake, I'm at the main processing center. I can set charges to create a funnel effect in the eastern approach." The drones will have to come through a narrow corridor if they want to reach the power plant. Do it, Jake said. But make sure you can detonate them remotely. We need precise timing. Already on it, Danny replied. Amy, I'm going to need you to give me control of the facility's structural sensors. I need to know exactly where to place these charges. Amy's fingers moved across the control panel, sending you the data. Now, Danny, be careful. Some of those support structures are more important than they look. Jake turned to the alien commanders. I know this isn't what you expected, but trust us. We've done this kind of thing before. Not with our technology, General Dexkar said. If you damage the facility, the Coalition will hold Earth responsible. If we don't adapt, the drones are going to overwhelm us anyway, Jake replied. Look at the screens. They're using coordinated tactics that your standard defenses aren't designed to handle. It was true. The drones had split into smaller groups that were approaching from unexpected angles. They were using the terrain in ways that bypassed the facility's main defensive systems. The exercise computer is learning from our previous tactics, Zillaneth said, her voice carrying a note of concern. It is adapting the drone behavior in real time. Then we need to adapt faster, Jake said. Amy, status report. Almost done. Amy called back. I've rerouted power to create 3 mobile defense nodes. They can move around the facility and concentrate firepower where we need it most. That's not possible, Commander Veltar said. The power distribution system doesn't have that kind of flexibility. It does now, Amy replied. I've bypassed the standard control protocols and created direct links between the power generators and the weapon systems. It's not elegant, but it works. Jake's communication device crackled again. Jake, this is Danny. I'm in position. I've got charges set at 6 different locations. When those drones come through the eastern corridor, I can channel them exactly where we want them. Good work, Jake said. Amy, can you coordinate with Danny's charges? Already done, Amy replied. I've linked his detonation controls to the main tactical computer. When the drones enter the kill zone, the charges will automatically create the optimal funnel pattern. General Dexkar's eyes widened. You have created an autonomous defensive system. We've created an adaptive defensive system, Jake corrected. It responds to what the enemy actually does, not what we think they're going to do. The drones were now less than 5 minutes away. Jake could see them clearly on the screens, their metallic bodies reflecting the sunlight as they approached the facility from multiple directions. All systems ready, Amy announced. The mobile defense nodes are online, Danny's charges are armed, and I've got direct control of the power distribution network. The exercise computer is registering multiple system modifications, Zillaneth said. It is attempting to compensate for the changes. Let it try, Jake said. Amy, can you monitor the computer's adaptations? Already am, Amy replied. Every time it changes the drone behavior, I'm adjusting our systems to match. It's like playing chess, except the board keeps changing. The first group of drones reached the facility's outer perimeter. Instead of engaging them immediately, Jake watched as they approached the traps his team had created. Now, he said quietly, Danny's charges detonated in perfect sequence, creating a series of barriers that funneled the drones into a narrow corridor. At the same time, Amy's mobile defense nodes moved into position, concentrating their firepower on the choke point. The result was devastating. The drones, caught in the funnel with nowhere to maneuver, were destroyed by concentrated energy fire. The entire first wave was eliminated in less than 30 seconds. Impressive, General Dexkar said. But the other groups are still approaching. I know, Jake replied. Amy, can you relocate the defense nodes to handle the next wave? Already. Moving them, Amy said. Danny, I need you to set up a different trap pattern for the western approach. On my way. Danny replied through the communicator. Jake watched the screens as his team's improvised systems adapted to each new threat. The aliens had created effective defensive systems, but they were designed for predictable enemies. Jake's team was creating something different, A defensive system that learned and changed as fast as the enemy did? The exercise computer is increasing the difficulty again, Zillaneth announced. It is sending 200 drones in the next wave. Good, Jake said. That means it's taking us seriously. Commander Veltar looked at him with something that might have been respect. You are not concerned about the increased threat level? I'm excited about it, Jake replied. The bigger the challenge, the more creative we have to get, and that's what humans do best. The next wave of drones appeared on the screens, and Jake realized that the real test was just beginning. The command center erupted in warning alarms. Red lights flashed across every screen, and the facility's computer began speaking in rapid bursts of alien languages that Jake couldn't understand. But he didn't need to understand the words to know that something was very wrong. What's happening? Jake shouted over the noise. Strategic mind Zillaneth was frantically working at her control station, her multiple arms moving across different panels at once. The exercise computer has experienced a cascade failure. It is no longer responding to safety protocols. General Vexcaris' massive form moved to the main tactical display. The training system believes this is a real invasion. It has activated live weapons protocols. Jake felt his stomach drop. Live weapons? You mean those drones out there are actually trying to kill us now? Affirmative, Commander Veltar said, his musical voice tight with concern. The automated systems cannot distinguish between simulation and reality. They are treating this as an actual combat situation. Amy looked up from her control station, her face pale. Jake, I'm reading massive power spikes throughout the facility. The weapon systems are drawing 10 times normal power levels. Danny's voice crackled through the communication system. Jake? I'm seeing some weird stuff out here. The drones just fired real energy beams at the building next to me. The wall is completely melted. Jake grabbed the communication device. Danny, get to cover immediately. This isn't a drill anymore. The facility's evacuation systems are offline, Zillaneth reported. Standard emergency protocols have failed. We cannot signal the ships in orbit. General Vexcar was trying to access the main computer system. The training computer has locked out all external commands. We cannot shut down the exercise. Jake looked at the tactical screens. 200 drones were approaching the facility, and now they were armed with real weapons instead of training simulators. His improvised defensive systems were the only thing standing between them and destruction. Amy, can our modifications handle live combat? Jake asked. Amy was checking her systems frantically. I don't know. I designed them for training scenarios, not real warfare. The power levels are completely different now. We have to try, Jake said. It's not like we have a choice. The first wave of drones reached the facility's outer perimeter. Jake watched on the screens as they fired real energy weapons at his improvised barriers. The mining cables that Amy had repositioned began to glow and smoke under the assault. The barriers are taking damage, Amy reported. I'm rerouting power to strengthen them, but I don't know how long they'll hold. Danny's voice came through the communicator again. Jake, my charges are still in place, but now I'm worried about what happens if I detonate them. We're not in a simulation anymore. Do what you have to do to keep us alive, Jake replied. But be careful. We don't want to bring the whole facility down on our heads. The drones were adapting their tactics in real time. Jake watched as they split into smaller groups, probing for weaknesses in the defensive perimeter. The exercise computer was learning from every attack, making the drones smarter and more dangerous with each wave. This is remarkable, Commander Veltar said, despite the dangerous situation. Your adaptive systems are responding to the increased threat level automatically. It was true. Amy's power distribution network was redirecting energy to threatened areas without any manual input. The mobile defense nodes were repositioning themselves to meet new attacks. Danny's explosive traps were activating in sequence to channel the drones into kill zones. The system is learning, Amy said with amazement. It's watching the drone behavior and predicting their next moves. How is that possible? Zillaneth asked. The facility's computer systems are not designed for autonomous learning. Amy grinned despite the danger. They are now. When I connected all the different systems together, I accidentally created something like an artificial intelligence. It's using the alien technology in ways that even you didn't know were possible. A massive explosion rocked the facility. One of the drone groups had managed to break through the outer defenses and was attacking the main power plant. We're losing power to sectors 3 and 4, Amy reported. I'm trying to compensate, but the damage is spreading. Jake made a decision that terrified him. Amy, can you give me direct control of the defensive system? What do you mean? Amy asked. I mean, plug me into it directly. Let me control it like I would control my own body. General Dexkar's eyes widened. That is extremely dangerous. Direct neural interface with combat systems can cause permanent brain damage. It's either that or we all die when this place gets overrun, Jake replied. Amy, is it possible? Amy hesitated for a moment, then nodded. I can create a basic interface using the facility's command helmet. But Jake, I have no idea what will happen when you connect to a system this complex. Only one way to find out, Jake said. Amy worked quickly to modify the facility's command interface. It was a helmet-like device that the aliens used for complex system control. She connected it to her improvised network using cables and components from Danny's equipment bag. This is completely untested, Amy warned as she handed Jake the modified helmet. You could be connecting your brain to an alien artificial intelligence that we don't fully understand. I trust you, Jake said, putting on the helmet. And I trust our ability to improvise. The moment the helmet activated, Jake's mind exploded with information. He could see every part of the facility at once, feel every power flow, sense every moving component. It was overwhelming and terrifying and amazing all at the same time, but more than that, he could sense the drones. Their attack patterns became clear to him, their tactics obvious. He could predict where they would go next, what they would try to do. Jake, are you okay? Amy's voice seemed to come from very far away. I'm more than okay, Jake replied, his voice sounding strange even to himself. I can see everything. He began directing the defensive systems with his thoughts instead of his hands. The mobile defense nodes responded to his mental commands, moving to intercept drone attacks before they fully developed. Danny's explosive traps activated in perfect sequence, creating barriers and redirecting enemy forces exactly where Jake wanted them. This is incredible, Danny's voice came through the communicator. Jake, it's like you know what they're going to do before they do it. I can feel their programming, Jake replied. The exercise computer is making them smarter, but it's also making them predictable. They're following logical patterns that I can anticipate. General Dexkar was staring at the tactical displays in amazement. The defensive efficiency has increased by 400%. The drones cannot penetrate the perimeter. But Jake could sense something else. The facility's main reactor was becoming unstable. Amy's power modifications had created an overload condition that was getting worse with each passing minute. Amy, Jake said, his voice tight with concern. We have a problem. The reactor is going to overload. Amy quickly checked her instruments. You're right. All the power rerouting has created feedback loops in the main system. We have maybe 10 minutes before total reactor failure, which would destroy the facility and everyone in it, Commander. Veltar said quietly. Jake could feel the reactor's instability through his neural connection. The alien technology was powerful, but it wasn't designed for the kind of creative modifications his team had made. They had pushed the systems beyond their normal limits. I can stabilize it, Jake said, but I need to stay connected to the defensive network. If I disconnect now, the drones will overrun us before we can evacuate. If you stay connected during a reactor overload, the neural feedback could kill you, Zelena said. Jake looked at his team through the helmet's display systems. Amy was working frantically to find a solution. Danny was still out in the facility, maintaining the defensive positions that were keeping them all alive. The alien commanders were watching him with expressions he had never seen before, not skepticism or polite interest, but genuine respect. There has to be another way, Amy said. Jake, what if I can create a buffer between you and the reactor systems? Maybe I can isolate the defensive network from the power overload. Try it, Jake said. But hurry. I can feel the reactor getting more unstable every second. Through his neural connection, Jake watched Amy work with the alien systems. She was connecting and disconnecting power flows, rerouting data streams, and creating new pathways through the facility's network. It was like watching a master artist paint with electricity and information. I think I've got it, Amy said. Jake, I'm going to disconnect you from the reactor controls, but keep you linked to the defensive systems. It might feel strange. Jake felt part of his awareness disappear as Amy made the modifications. The reactor's instability faded from his consciousness, but he could still sense the drones and control the defensive systems. It's working, he said. Amy, you're a genius. The reactor is stabilizing, Zillaneth reported. The overload condition is reversing, but Jake could sense new problems developing. More drones were approaching, and the exercise computer was adapting to his neural control methods. The real test was just beginning. Jake felt the exercise computer learning from his every move. Through his neural connection to the defensive systems, he could sense the artificial intelligence adapting to his tactics in real time. Each time he predicted where the drones would attack, the computer adjusted their behavior. Each time he moved the mobile defense nodes, the drones found new approach routes. It's getting smarter, Jake said, his voice strained from the mental effort of controlling dozens of systems simultaneously. The exercise computer is learning faster than I can adapt. Amy was monitoring his vital signs from her control station. Jake, your brain activity is off the charts. You can't keep this up much longer. Through the neural link, Jake could feel every part of the facility like it was his own body. The mobile defense nodes were his arms, the sensor arrays were his eyes, and the power distribution network was his nervous system. But the drones were like an infection, probing for weaknesses and exploiting every gap in his defenses. 200 more drones approaching from the north, General Vexkar announced. The exercise computer has doubled the attack force. Jake tried to redirect his defenses to meet the new threat, but something unexpected happened. The defensive system began moving on its own, anticipating his commands before he could give them. Amy, what's happening to the system? Jake asked. Amy checked her readings and her eyes widened with amazement. Jake, the network is learning from your thought patterns. It's starting to think like you do. Through his connection, Jake could feel the artificial intelligence that had emerged from Amy's modifications. It was crude and simple compared to human thinking, but it was learning with incredible speed. Every decision Jake made, every tactical choice, was being analyzed and incorporated into the system's behavior. This is impossible, Strategic Mind Zillaneth said. Our technology cannot create autonomous intelligence. The safety protocols prevent such development. Your safety protocols don't apply when a human brain is directly connected to the system, Amy replied. Jake is teaching the network how to think creatively. Danny's voice came through the communicator with excitement. Jake, something amazing is happening out here. The defensive systems are setting up traps that I never programmed. They're using the mining equipment in ways I never thought of. Jake watched through the sensor networks as the facility systems worked together in perfect harmony. Mining cables stretched between buildings to create barriers that could move and adapt. Cutting tools repositioned themselves to create crossfire patterns that trapped incoming drones. Even the lighting systems were being used to confuse and blind the attacking forces. The system is learning faster than the exercise computer, Commander Veltar observed. It is adapting to new threats before they fully develop. The northern attack wave hit the facility's defenses and was destroyed almost instantly. The defensive network had predicted the attack pattern and prepared countermeasures that the drones couldn't adapt to quickly enough. Incredible, General. Vexkar rumbled. The tactical efficiency is beyond anything we have ever seen. But Jake could sense something else happening. The exercise computer was trying one final adaptation. Instead of sending more drones, it was attempting to take direct control of the facility's systems. Amy, the exercise computer is trying to hack into our network, Jake warned. Amy's fingers flew across her control panels. I can see it. It's trying to override our modifications and regain control of the defensive systems. Can you stop it? Jake asked. I'm trying, but it has access to the facility's core programming. I'm fighting it with improvised systems and creative thinking, but it has the advantage of knowing exactly how everything is supposed to work. Jake felt the computer's intrusion like a physical attack. The exercise system was trying to force the defensive network back into its original configuration, eliminating all the creative modifications that made it effective. I won't let it, Jake said through gritted teeth. This system belongs to us now. He poured his consciousness into the neural link, fighting the exercise computer's attempts to regain control. It was like arm wrestling with a machine using human creativity and determination against cold logic and overwhelming processing power. Jake, your brain patterns are becoming dangerous, Amy warned. If you push too hard, the neural feedback could cause permanent damage. If I don't push hard enough, we all die, Jake replied. The battle for control of the facility's systems raged in cyberspace. Jake's human intuition clashed with the exercise computer's logical algorithms. Every time the computer tried to impose standard protocols, Jake countered with improvised solutions. Every time it attempted to restore original configurations, Jake created new connections that shouldn't have been possible. The system is stabilizing, Zelenev announced. The exercise computer is losing control. Jake could feel the moment when the battle turned. The defensive network, enhanced by his creative thinking and Amy's modifications, began to resist the exercise computer's control attempts. It had learned not just tactics and strategies, but also the human ability to think outside established patterns. The exercise computer is retreating, Amy said with amazement. The defensive network is actually forcing it out of its own systems. Because it's not just alien technology anymore, Jake realized. It's something new. A combination of alien hardware and human creativity. The facility's alarm suddenly stopped. The red warning lights faded to normal illumination. On the tactical screens, the remaining drones powered down and returned to their storage positions. Exercise terminated, announced the facility's computer system in a calm voice. All systems returning to normal operating parameters. Jake carefully disconnected from the neural interface, feeling strangely empty as his consciousness returned to his own body. The sensation of controlling the entire facility faded, leaving him feeling small and limited by comparison. That was the most incredible thing I have ever witnessed, General Vexkar said, his voice filled with genuine respect. You did not just defend against the attack. You created something entirely new. Commander Veltar was studying the tactical displays with fascination. The defensive network continues to operate at enhanced efficiency even without direct human control. It has learned to think creatively. Amy was reviewing her system modifications with excitement. The network is still adapting and improving. It's taking the lessons Jake taught it and applying them to new situations. This isn't just a defensive system anymore. It's a learning intelligence. Danny emerged from the facility's lower levels, his face covered with sweat and grime but grinning widely. That was the most fun I've had since basic training. Did you see how the system started using the mining charges in sequence? It created explosion patterns that I never would have thought of. Strategic mind Zelenev approached Jake with an expression that he had never seen on an alien face before. It took him a moment to recognize it as admiration. Commander Morrison, she said, the Coalition Defense Command must hear about this immediately. What you have created here could revolutionize military defense throughout the galaxy. What we created, Jake corrected. Amy did the technical work. Danny provided the tactical expertise, and your advanced technology made it all possible. None of us could have done this alone. General Vexkar nodded slowly. This demonstrates the value of bringing different perspectives together. Human creativity combined with coalition technology has produced something neither could achieve independently. Over the next few hours, ships began arriving in orbit above the facility. Word of the successful exercise had spread quickly through the Coalition fleet. Military commanders, scientists, and engineers all wanted to see the adaptive defensive system that had emerged from the training exercise. Jake found himself giving demonstrations to groups of alien officers, explaining how human tactical thinking had enhanced their technology. Amy presented technical briefings on the system modifications, while Danny showed how human improvisation could turn any equipment into defensive tools. "The Coalition Defense Command has made a formal request," Commander Veltar told Jake 3 days later. "They want you and your team to establish a permanent research facility here. This location will become the center for developing new adaptive defense technologies." Jake looked out at the mining facility that had become something completely different. The buildings were the same, but the systems connecting them had evolved into something that resembled a living organism more than a machine. "What about Earth?" Jake asked. "We have responsibilities there." "Earth has agreed to loan your services to the Coalition," Veltar replied. "In exchange, human military advisors will be assigned to every major Coalition defensive installation. Your people will teach our forces how to think creatively about tactical problems." Amy joined them at the observation window. "Jake, I've been monitoring the system's development. It's still learning and growing. Every day it becomes more sophisticated, more capable of handling unexpected situations. And more human," Danny added, walking up behind them. "Sometimes I swear it has a sense of humor. Yesterday used the mining equipment to spell out boom on the ground after destroying a practice target." Jake smiled at that. The defensive system had indeed learned more than just tactics from their neural connection.